And then I'm going to cut it. Well, hello, and welcome to Stimming and Stilettos with Dr. Toshia. And I am really glad to just come to my audience with just an expert, right? so, okay, all right. So I really am just so happy to have Dr. Claire here. I call her Dr. Claire. You guys can call her Dr. Green-Forde.
Dr. Claire works. I go by Dr. Claire.
Dr. Claire. And so you guys know you call me Dr. Toshia. Dr. Claire and I met, I want to say maybe a month ago. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we've known each other forever. I mean, we just clicked, and I love when moments like that happen. So put the call out, and I said, I need you guys on my show. She was the first one to say yes. So as we do on the show, first, I really, again, want to thank you for just being so amenable and just for coming on here and being willing to share your expertise. I absolutely am so appreciative. So thanks.
My pleasure.
Okay, so first I want Dr. Claire to sort of give us, who are you, Dr. Claire? Where did you come from? What is your story? So that's how we start every episode on Stimming and Stilettos. So I want the audience to get to know you and come to love you like I do.
Absolutely. So thank you again for this opportunity. I'm really happy to be here. I loved, from the time I heard Stimming and Stilettos, I was just like, yes, I can identify. I love it. And I'm appreciative of the work and your passion, your love for women of color, and for people. So thank you. So who am I? I'm a woman of God. I'm a practicing, learning, growing, struggling Christian woman. And I'm firmly grounded in the fact that I am here because of the grace of God. So that's who I am, who God has created me to be, and I continue to learn and develop into that, is a firm racial and social justice warrior. I am unapologetically all about justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. I love and operate at the intersection of mental health, racial and social justice, advocacy, and policy, all rooted in health equity. And that's what my consultancy, Dr. Claire Speaks, focuses on, speaking and training at that intersection. I also have a LLC with my twin sister, which was her brainchild, and that's called Chapter 2, and that centers a talent experience. So how people experience the world of work, and it is also grounded in a lens of accessibility, diversity, justice, and inclusion, and with the umbrella of understanding that if we don't engage the humanity of others in whatever sector we're in, it's for naught. And so that's who I am in a nutshell. Intersectionality is always where I'm going to land, and being a humanist and honoring the lives of those around me, as well as myself, is who God has created me to be.
See, y'all, we didn't even practice either. I told y'all, I'm always trying to bring my audience just really great people who have really great gifts and talents that they don't mind sharing with the world. And I'm just completely honored, right? I think the work that you do is so vitally important, especially where we find ourselves right now. It's a weird time, don't you think? Don't you think it's like we're in this really weird space of sort of like this, there's this push and this pull happening in the world where it's like people want change, they want to move things forward. There is an acknowledgement that there are particular issues by some. There is, as it relates to diversity, equity, inclusion, justice. But then there's this backlash that I knew was going to happen, especially after George Floyd and all of the Black Lives Matter marches, and sort of this racial reckoning that actually we're still in. I think people thought it's over, but we are still in it. And I knew there was going to be a backlash. I mean, it almost like it had to be, right? Because, when there's a rising up, there is a response to that. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's where we are. And I think there's a mindset from some that says that, no, that was then, it's over. It was 2 years ago. We addressed all those problems. Look at all of the diversity officers and the chief of this and the chief of that, and we're making strides. But for me, it's like, how far does it go? Like, how are we measuring success in those areas?
So I think that humans have a tendency for sameness. We have survived. And anything that challenges our desire for sameness, our desire to know what's going to happen, so the predictability, is something that's going to cause us to be uncomfortable. America's love affair with racism and oppression means that we're not going to address in 2 years what has been happening for centuries. But the desire to quickly move past is where we are. Yeah. The reality is for people who've really been doing DEI work and understand the history of DEI came out of the civil rights movement. So we're not talking about 2 years, we're actually talking about over 50 years of work connected to DEI. But what we have seen in the last several years is the removal of the foundation of DEI, which has been initially grounded in racial justice. Ooh. So what we have now is either or versus and. It's so anti-Blackness, the core of anti-Blackness, is connected to every other systemic injustice in this country and around the world, because proximity to whiteness has always been the thing that has granted some measure of humanity.
Yeah.
That's why we see these issues within DEI when it's, well, how can this person who's also part of the global majority be enacting violence? You can't be a marginalized group and then enact violence or harm against other people. That's false. But
correct.
Closer to whiteness people have become, or assimilating or getting the white approval and white gaze, they have felt safe. And it's the same thing when the Irish came to America and the Italians came to America, right? Everybody went through these phases of being rejected. However, they were able to assimilate because of their pigmentation, which rendered them being able to blend in. Blackness means that you can never do that. So when we think of DEI, the reality is DEI is still led by predominantly white people. And if DEI is being led by predominantly white people for all these years, how far have we gotten?
Yeah. I felt that in a place.
And it's not just white people as individuals, because as we know, a lot of people get sensitive and you have to do your own work. I'm a trained licensed clinical social worker. So I'm going to tell you, if you're sensitive, you need some therapy, I can recommend some resources too.
Please, we're going to get to it.
Do your own work. Do your own work to deconstruct and decolonize and de-imperialize your own essence and your own individual being, because whiteness is not an individual thing. The system of whiteness is across the board. It's why we just saw what happened in UK this week.
Yeah.
Where a woman who is, again, for 16 days of activism against violence for women, showed up at Buckingham Palace and then was engaged with by someone who was aggressive towards her because of the color of her skin.
Yeah.
Representative of the palace who is, of course the excuses happen. Oh, she's older, because we always excuse either they're too young and they didn't mean it.
They didn't know. Yeah.
They didn't know any better. They're learning and they didn't mean it, or they're too old and they're stuck in their ways. But yet are never too young to experience the violence of racism.
Correct. We don't get to be young
to learn about racism and to decolonize the racism that is in themselves that you support in your family.
Yeah.
So those things, when we think about DEI and justice, when we think about the way that it impacts how we show up at work, how we show up in our lives, how we show up at the supermarket, Truth is that for years I've known I can't just run out to the supermarket looking any old way because I'm automatically going to be assumed to be up to no good because
Correct.
of my skin. So I would love to go out looking like a college student with a hoodie and some sweatpants and some boots and run out in the rain. But I have to somehow think you have to kind of look presentable. Those are the insidious ways that racial oppression, and not micro, I don't believe in the term microaggressions because there's nothing micro about this. Are the very ways that they impact and influence every single aspect of our lives, which of course, as a clinician, I know also impacts our physical health, our mental health, sexual health, our relational health.
And I want to talk about it. Just that. I mean, good Lord, can I unpack some of what you said?
Yes.
It was, so what I want to say is, yes, to all of the things that you said. It's hard. And I don't think white people, people who are not of the global majority, which I love and have started to use that phraseology right now, because I just love it. And it's true. So they just don't understand the pressures that we walk out of our house with every day. And the things that are put upon us, right? We didn't ask for these things, right? We aren't out here saying, hey, we want, we want you to think of us as this, right? Or as less than, or as not as intelligent. We always don't know the rules, or we don't, there are things at play that we can't possibly understand, right? We're thought of as less smart in rooms, especially as Black women, especially. And I, of course, you guys know, I work with minority women in STEM and Black women in particular. So I have been in rooms where I have been mistaken for the admin. And I was the mechanical engineer of record. Like that literally happened to me. And had the guy profusely apologize when I explained to him that, I'm the mechanical engineer of record for your project, right? It's like we'll be spending lots of time together. So I just need you to put this face, lock it in, right? So just sort of having those experiences day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, it really does take a toll on us to sort of have to carry through no fault of our own, but we have to carry these things into our lives. And so it takes a toll mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually on us. And I am very much aware that I feel like we're at this breaking point right now that I have not seen in all of my years, right? I just haven't seen the number of people that I've seen actually talking about therapy, the number of people I've seen talking about quiet quitting, the number of people that I have seen talking about like just feeling so tired and wanting to sort of offload. And, and I mean, and it's not just a matter of sort of taking off this, it's like, I just want to be free to be myself, like that kind of unloading. Like, I just haven't seen it in quite this way. And so I'm almost happy to see it, but like, I just want you to sort of help us unpack where we are and what it means. Because I feel like that's exactly where we are.
So I think there's so many good points of what you just said too, right? Like you're seeing more and more about this, and there's a point of like, oh, good, we're talking about it, but then it's like, oh, wow, this is a lot.
Yeah.
In general, in the last few years, I mean, just a few weeks ago, came out and talked about a plan for workplace wellness, because now there's finally a recognition that your experiences at work can harm your mental health and wellness.
Yeah.
Finally, that recognition. Now there's things talking about experiences of toxicity at work take over 2 years for your body or your mental health to recover from. So if one bad experience or harmful experience takes 22 months on average. What does a lifetime take?
Good Lord.
We're not talking about that, right? We're
right.
about toxic work environments can take almost 2 years. I want to classify that 22 months is 2 years. But that's for a toxic environment. I don't know any person of the global majority, and I'm going to be very specific, Black women, because Black women do not have the same experience. Yes, there are other people in the global majority, and this is not oppression Olympics. This is just facts. Look at the facts. Across the board for Black women in health, across the board for Black women in pay equity, across the board for Black women and maternal deaths.
Yeah.
Look at the stats in all areas. Black women are among the most harmed with Indigenous women, right? The women that this country belongs to, the women that we are on their soil and have stolen their land and their culture and their people, and Black women are having very similar outcomes in some areas. And those are outcomes that no one wants to be in competition with. So talking about what's going on with us talking more about mental health. Last year, the Surgeon General talked about the youth mental health crisis, right? So we're talking about youth mental health crisis. We're talking about the crisis at work. We just talked about the fact that mental health is one of the leading concerns in this country and in the world. Mental health has been here for forever.
Yeah.
Have chosen the path where we get to dehumanize and fragment humanity. But it's not surprising. America has a long history of fractional humanity, a person.
Yeah, we know that's true. They can, they are masters at it. They have perfected that craft of being able to look at another human, another person, and not see that person as human. And so they were able to do unspeakable things to people because they justified it by, they don't feel pain.
No, absolutely. I mean, if we're thinking of STEM, like if we think the medical part of it, modern gynecological service and obstetrics was developed on the torture of Black women.
Yeah.
The experimentations were done on Black women. When we think about birth control in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, sanctioned by the US government, the women in Puerto Rico were guinea pigs.
Yeah.
The birth control that we have now and the levels that we have now are like a fraction, a 100th of what they gave these women. Forced sterilizations, giving them medications that caused physiological distress, mental distress, emotional distress, lifelong changes. This isn't in people's lifetime.
Yeah.
Talk about, we need to get over things. How do you get over things when there are people alive today that I know who were part of those US sanctioned crimes against humanity and still are? Oftentimes when we talk about the engagement of medicine and health and mental health, our diagnoses, the way that we even address things, even in the diagnostic and statistical manual, which we use, are rooted in racism. And
correct.
It wasn't until the 1970s that we removed being LGBTQ from the manual as a mental disease. What the heck does who you love have to do with being mentally ill? It doesn't.
It doesn't. And it's I love that we're discussing this. And it actually brings up something that just happened to me recently. Mine was stress induced, but I was recently diagnosed with like high blood pressure, and like I'm talking high blood pressure. Like when I got diagnosed, I think I had went in, and it was so funny. The way I got diagnosed with high blood pressure was there was our church was doing something in partnership with one of the local drugstores where they came and did sort of like, they take your blood pressure and do some. So I go in there, I'm like, yeah, okay. Let me do it. When I got, and I had, I was so shocked. My blood pressure was like 180, 182 over like 100, right? when she took it. And she was like, are you feeling okay? And she took it twice because she was like, there's got to be something wrong with this machine. She took it twice. And so she was like, are you feeling okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And she was just like, you need to go to the doctor. You need to go to the emergency room.
They sent you directly to the doctor.
They sent me to the emergency room. You know, it was so shocking to me because I'd never had high blood pressure, but I understood in that moment that it was all stress induced. Like I've never had high blood pressure in my life, but I was so, I was, you know, all the pressures from the job was like getting to me.
Yeah.
To a point where it was there. And so I had to, you know, had to go, and they gave me some medicine, but then they told me, okay, go to your, you know, to your general practitioner and do, you know, a workup. I do. And my doctor, the doctor that I was seeing, she had left the practice. I didn't know that. So I would have went wherever she went, but she wasn't there. So I get a new doctor who was a white lady. And I've never had an experience like this. And I was like, okay, I don't know what this is. We do the, you know, workup with the nurse practitioner. She does all of the, you know, taking the blood and all of the things. And we're talking about my results. And then she, you know, the doctor comes in, she stood by the door. She opened up my file and she says, we're going to give you this type of medicine. And I was like, well, I've heard about this type of medicine. And I'm like, it's like, I don't necessarily want to what are my options? And so she was just like, well, these are it. And it, you know, like this was it. And I was like, well, I know that there are other, you know, blood pressure medicines that are, you know, have less effects and so on and so forth. Like I really want to be, you know, even though I'm in this situation, I want to honor my body. Right. And I know my body, like I'm not a medicine person, right? It'll make me sleepy. I'll be loopy. I'll be something like I'm guaranteed to have an effect because that is how my body. She was not trying to hear me. You're going to take this medicine and at this dosage. And I was like, well, is that the lowest dosage? If you're saying that I have to take this medicine, is it the lowest dosage? Because I guarantee you give me this high dosage, is I'm going to be a zombie walking around. I know, like not trying to hear me at all. And so she had made a decision. This is what it is. She opens the door that she was standing beside. And I literally say, you're trying to kill me. She shut that door so fast because there were people outside. And, and she looked at me and she took this deep breath. And then she was just like, okay, so what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to discuss what my options are so I can make the best choice for myself. I was like, you have more information than I do for sure. You're the doctor. However, I get to say what happens to me.
You do.
And I was I was shaking, because I was like, I just didn't realize I was going to have to, forcefully advocate for myself. It was so, I couldn't even function. I got back in my car after that, leaving, and I just sat there and I was like, my blood pressure is probably through the roof right now from this encounter. But I just can't imagine. I mean, I guess I now can see that happening all over the world.
All the time. And I am so frustrated that happened to you. I'm not going to say I'm sorry because it's not me. But I'm frustrated that it happened to you because it's a repeated encounter that several people have every single second engaging medical and systems of care every single day, every single hour, where people are dehumanized and they're not empowered. And because of this hierarchy that we have with the medical model and authority, people sit back, but it is costing us our lives. You should not go to a system where you should be getting healed and helped and now have to muster energy to fight for your life.
Right.
Unacceptable. When you spoke about, your blood pressure, I instantly thought about the allostatic load. And the allostatic load really refers to like the cumulative impact and burden of chronic and ongoing stress on our bodies, the physiological impact, the psychological impact, and how it impacts us to varying degrees. I myself, because of stress and being a Black woman in America, my current full-time role, other roles, have stress-induced autoimmune disorders now that are lifelong. This is not the burden I carry. Autoimmune disorders that are lifelong, that have been going on for a long time. But had I didn't know.
Yeah.
A trained mental health practitioner, but I am still a Black woman in America. I'm still an immigrant woman in America. And that's the lived reality that I engage. I too have had to go to doctors and be like, no, I know the laws. I know HIPAA. So no, not just, I know my patient bill of rights. No, we're not going to talk about this. I have said, I don't believe in medication first. What are some natural remedies to do? And I can tell you that currently all 12 of my health providers are women of the global majority. Whether they're Black, whether they're Asian, whether or not they're indigenous, and it has made a difference in the quality of care that I have had. My PCP, God bless her, I love her, I adore her, because I'm human. The reality is I'm not a medical doctor, so I want to be clear that I am not speaking from a position of medical knowledge, but I am speaking from a position of clinical knowledge in terms of mental health and the awareness of how our environment impacts our overall physiological and sociological and mental health. That perspective. I am clear that had I not had this team who are aware of the fact that certain things show up in Black women more, certain things show up in Asian women more, and versus South Asian women and East Asian women, certain things show up in Caribbean, certain things, and to investigate that. Because now my thing is, treat me with the love, the care, and affection you would treat me as if I walked in here in a white body. I want the same level of investigation that you would do if I was a white body. I want the same level of compassion and grace if I were in a white body. Treat me like I were white. And that is unacceptable because you just had this experience. And we see this in our mental health system as in our physical health system. This is why communities of the global majority don't always engage. We can always say about non-compliance, but I don't believe in that term. Your systems are not welcoming. Your systems continually show people they don't belong. About 5-6 years ago, there was a major study done and it queried medical students. An overwhelmingly majority of medical students, not in 1800, not in 1901, but in 2015 or 14, still believed that Black people didn't feel pain the same way that white people did. These medical students, these are that are treating you, because we still have a majority of white doctors who are indoctrinated into a white system, who are indoctrinated into a system that is upgirded by white supremacy, colonialism, imperialism, dehumanization, and othering. That is the system that we have to navigate for care. That's why Black women have 3 times the mortality rate postpartum than their white counterparts. It's why Black babies under the care of white doctors are dying 3 times that of white counterparts, but white babies under the care of any doctor are surviving today. That is why that's happening. It's why Black children, the youth that we are dealing with, and indigenous children and Hispanic children are experiencing psychological dis-ease at great lengths because of the impact of racism and oppression. The American Academy of Pediatrics 2 years ago said that racism was among one of the leading causes of mental illness for youth. And on average, Black youth were experiencing 5 or more incidences of racial aggression a day. Kids. Yeah. This is the world we grow in, but then we're told, take the medicine. It's not the medicine. First of all, we weren't included in the clinical trials and studies, so let's just be clear about that. We're not included. But these practices don't honor our cultural beliefs. Because my team is of women, providers are also women like me from the Caribbean, are also women who are indigenous, or also women who are part of the global majority. When I go and I say, I want to try this or this natural remedy, or I found this, my doctors don't say no. What they say is, I'm going to look this up. I've had doctors come back to me and say, hey, Claire, I looked up what you told me last time and I researched the rigor of it. And there's a lot of research that suggests this. So now I'm recommending this to other patients. Thank you so much for telling me about this remedy.
That's true. That's what we need more of. It's really, so part of the work what I do with Black women is I'm a coach. I'm a certified life coach, but I sort of take this work I always look at myself as the person that I didn't have when I was a practicing engineer. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a mentor or a coach or somebody that I could talk to that would help me navigate through these spaces that I was entering into. There was no one. And so I am that person for other women because I know I needed it. I stepped on all sorts of landmines that, I can help them avoid. But the only reason I bring this up is that part of the conversation that I often have with some of the women is how to be an effective advocate for yourself, because it's not something that we're taught. Unfortunately, we still have to advocate for ourselves. And we don't know how to do it because we've actually been taught the opposite, because that means that, we're the loud Black girl, right? It's like, you can't be right, or angry, right? You can't be too, can't stand up for yourself too much because people will determine that you are aggressive, right? Yeah. That terminology is applied to you when you are standing, you're standing up for yourself, or you're standing in your truth, right? Like, I don't want to take this. This is not correct. I won't be treated this way, whatever the situation it, calls for. Then we get labeled as something, and the aggressor, the person, is the victim. Yep. In many of those cases. And so it's very, that takes a toll. It takes a mental toll, a physical toll, a spiritual toll, just a whole human toll on us, and that we are carrying this around. So I always liken it to, I think there was a cartoon out here a long time ago where it was an older woman, and it was like all of the things that she had, she had weighing on her. It was physically like in the forms of books and boxes and other things. And so they had them on both shoulders, and it was piled so high that this woman was sort of this hunched over figure. And I think that's us walking around right now. Yeah. So let me ask you this question. Maybe it's an unfair question, but I think I'm going to ask it anyway. But like, how do we start? How do we start to heal ourselves? How do we start to go to sort of get, I want to say get free. But I also want to, like, how do we start to sort of release ourselves from all of the stuff? Yeah. How do we do that?
So I think that's going to look different for everyone. And it's something I'm still learning and growing and figuring out myself as an individual, as a woman of faith, and as a practitioner and an advocate. But what I can say is it starts with recognizing that your experiences are real. We so often gaslight ourselves and listen to the gaslighting that we have encountered, telling us it's not that bad. If you work harder, how many of us have repeated, you got to work 5 times as hard to get half as far? We also repeat the white supremacy culture, and we teach our children this, and we share it in our homes. The reality is yes, we are living in a society where we will not be seen, but we don't have to embody it. We can choose the environment we create around us. of our ability, because you're not going to change systemic racism in the policing, in housing, and you're not changing that just because you've changed your mindset for today. Of the solution. Right. You can be part of taking back your power. You can start to give grace to yourself. When people say to you, you're angry, you're like, there's an angry Black woman, there's a spicy Latina, there's a Caucasian woman. And I'm just like, I have friends who are of the Asian diaspora. They're badass advocates. Right. Don't think anything quiet about them. I have the Black women in my circle. None of them are angry that I like. That's not my circle. The Latina women are in my circle. They're not spicy. Like, where does this come from? So one of the things is stop gaslighting yourself. Yeah. Minimizing and allowing yourself to dehumanize your existence, because others are going to dehumanize it, but you don't have to participate in that. When people tell you who you are, you get to accept or reject any parts of those things, right? Ooh. And I've done a talk where I told people throughout my career, I'm angry, I'm too assertive, you're too passionate, you not to lead to let other people take credit for your work. Yeah. Till I started owning and saying, when I walk into the space, because like you, I too have been assumed to be the secretary or the person who's going to be taking notes, because I have been the only person with the global majority in a room of decision makers impacting hundreds of thousands of lives every day. And I'm the only person, and they assume I'm the person taking notes. I have been the person who showed up to give a keynote, checked in, and waited 30 minutes only to hear people frantically looking for Dr. Green-Forde, because I apparently don't look like Dr. Green-Forde. Part of my work has been to reject the narrative that has been given to me. Part of my work has been to filter and determine which parts I will take, because all feedback is not hate. Right. So you have to be able to discern, is this feedback from people who are looking to grow me and challenge me to be the best version of myself? Or is this from hate-filled, low enthusiasm for anything other than themselves people, which you get to reject? So when you tell me that I'm angry, I get to reject that I'm angry. And even through a lens of spirituality, Jesus operated in righteous anger. So if you're yes, I am angry, righteously angry, because God never told me I couldn't be angry. I could be angry about the things that were unjust, just as God modeled for me. And so, yes, I am angry about injustice. And my model for that is Christ. So if you got a problem, take it up with God. Don't talk to me about it. Yes. That's my approach, right? It's giving yourself permission to be human. Also then teaching that in your family. I come from a culture, children are seen and not heard. Stop it. They're people. They're people. They're human beings with all the feelings and emotions that you have. Every single one, except they have more hope and joy than we do, because over the years we rob and take it away from them. Listen to them, honor them, apologize to them, because you're not always right. Yeah, love that. Those things, and put the boundaries in place that are necessary, that honor you. To me, that's where we start. And the last thing I'll say and then pass it back to you is get help. Black women, Black men, Hispanic women, Hispanic men, white women, all people in general, people who are non-binary, get help. And if the people you are seeking help from don't honor you, fire them. You do not have to sit in therapy. You do not have to sit in a doctor's office with people who do not honor your humanity. If people do not acknowledge that you are trans or non-binary, then guess what? They do not get the gift of your presence. If people do not understand or acknowledge that as a Black woman or as an Asian woman or as a young person that you are experiencing what you are experiencing, they also don't get the gift of your presence. And this is not a debate of whether we believe in this or not. At the end of the day, I believe in humanity. I am a humanist first. This is why, despite people challenging me about my Christianity and belief about all these other things, my Christianity is exactly why I believe in care and love for others, regardless of who they are, regardless of what they look like, regardless of what you feel about them. Because if God loves the sinner as much as he loves the child, what right do I have to judge? Not that I don't judge, because I'm human and I talk to God about it every day, right? He's dealing with me, but that's why. So reject the hypothesis or accept the null hypothesis about who you are, create that, but also get help, get in community with people who are going to challenge you to grow.
Yeah.
To support you on your journey. A lot of times we're in therapy because the people in our lives refuse to go to therapy, right? That's the reason, right? It's like you're struggling with these things because your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your partner won't go to do their own work. Do your own work. You can't change everybody, but what you can do is change your stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I agree wholeheartedly. I have been in therapy and currently in therapy because I realized a long time ago, through, I've had some real trauma in my life, that left undealt with, could have really impacted my life in ways that I can't imagine at this point, because I have had extensive therapy. But I knew that, especially when I had kids, that I wanted to show up and be the best version of myself, for them, right? So that I could parent in a way that honored them, and I wasn't putting onto them my own stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's when I hit it hard when I became a parent, because I just was like, I cannot do this job. Still hurting, still operating from a mindset of victimhood, and then I just instinctually knew that I was going to pass that on. Didn't want it. So therapy
trauma is transferred trauma.
Yeah. And so I've worked really hard to not be that person, but to be the best me that I could be, because that's the only thing.
You for loving yourself enough to invest in yourself and know you were worth healing.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest with you, and it's still a work. I mean, we are all human at the end of the day, and we still, we still get it wrong. But as you know, I'm also Christian. I mean, God gives second chances and third chances and seven chances and
100.
So, right. So he just keeps picking us up and saying, okay, son, okay, daughter, let's do better today. So that is what keeps me grounded. So I love the idea of sort of this, it's almost like we have to acknowledge that there is a problem, deal with said problem, sort of do our own work, to be the person that we want to be better, like we know we all have our own faults.
Yeah.
And some of those were inherited and some of those are just us.
Right.
So,
Absolutely. Because not everybody sometimes it's you.
It's just you. That's just right. It's so true.
Everybody in your life can't be that. Everybody in your life doesn't have your back. No one loves you. No one supports you. And everybody in your family or everybody in your circle is given the same story. You're the common denominator. This is the thing. Or it can't be that everybody else is angry or wrong and nothing is wrong. Like, no, like the reason why I said that little spiel earlier about, acknowledging your own stuff and going to therapy and just humanizing yourself, particularly for the global majority. This is a way of radical self-love. Yes. You, me, us have been denied our humanity for so long that we have also been indoctrinated into the space of denying our individual humanity and the humanity of others around us. That's why we, as part of the global majority, can also participate in harming others of the global majority if they don't look like us.
Yeah.
And that's why you have to humanize yourself, because if you don't love yourself, the Bible says, love your neighbor as thyself. But if you don't love yourself, you can't love your neighbor.
You cannot. it's not gonna work.
Mhm.
I felt that in a whole place. Okay, I feel like we could have a part 2 and a part 3 and a part
Absolutely.
4. And we might have to, because I know that I have some more that I want to discuss with you. So I'm asking you now in front of a whole audience of people to come back on.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Very good.
There's so many different things we can go off in, from mental health to just everything. Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Awesome. See, y'all see, look at my audience helping me get a guest. Look at that. I love y'all. I love y'all already. Okay, so tell us what's happening in your world, where we can find you. Yeah, where, and then all of your social media handles and the like.
So I hide from social media, so I don't have all of them. I'm on LinkedIn, so you can find me on LinkedIn if you just look for Dr. Claire Green-Forde. I feel this is another reminder from God that I do need to do some type of social media presence. I am very adverse to it because it's been one of the ways that I've protected my peace and honored my mental health and my wellness, because I've often engaged. A lot of people want to plug into me and take.
Yeah.
Part of my protection is the boundaries I create in my life. But God is also pushing me to other spaces, and I'm in a much healthier place where the boundaries are the boundaries regardless. So you can find me on LinkedIn right now. I definitely know I need to, and working on my website so that it can be up, so you can find me. I'm happy to reach out to me, happy to speak at people's paid, because I do not deposit free in my bank account. That's not currency that the bank takes, in addition to the fact that we have to stop expecting people of the global majority, and particularly Black women, to consistently do things unpaid, because that's part of the violence. And so you can certainly reach out to me. I do trainings, but for the Org Company with my sister, chapter2.com, you can find us there. And so I can definitely share that information out with you. That, again, focuses on the talent experience and going to organizations, do training. We're both DIS certified. She's certified in predictive index, and it blends the lens that I bring in terms of mental health and understanding human development and behavior. And her lens is an amazing, accomplished global HR lead, and someone who, like me, is Christ-centered and firmly believes that if we center people first, we can accomplish business goals and at the same time honor the humanity of the people that work with us. Because organisms, us as individuals, are who make up organizations.
Yes.
And to take that piece away. And so you can find me there as well. And I can certainly email you those things, so you can link it on videos or anything like that. But that's how you find me.
Well, so I will tell people that this information you'll be able to find on the show notes. You'll be able to find information about Dr. Claire there. So I need y'all to read the show notes, right? I just really do need you to do that. And if you are on YouTube watching us right now, you'll have to wait just a little bit, but the show notes will be up soon, so you can connect with Dr. Claire, and you guys are going to want to connect with Dr. Claire. All right, so here's our last question, and it is the question that we ask every single guest on every single show of Stemming and Stilettos. So, if you could travel back through time and talk to your younger self, what advice would you give her, and why?
That's so, like, that one you should have told me about. You'll get the raw response. There's a lot of things I would tell her. One of the first things would be that I'm sorry for the people who failed you. It's not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their inability to acknowledge their worth and therefore validate yours. That's one of the first things I would say to myself, because for years I spent so much energy and time and broken hearts trying to feel loved because of all the people who should love me, who I felt rejected by. That created so much doubt and uncertainty in myself. And it's still something I deal with. I'm in therapy too. I love my therapist. I am grateful for my therapist, and she's very gentle, because sometimes she's like, I don't want to push back. I'm like, no, push back. on me because I need that peace. But that is something that I would say to my younger self. I would also say that be the unique person you are. You don't have to fit in, because I've always felt like I don't fit in. Being from the Caribbean and leaving at a young age, it was, you're not Caribbean enough because you left. But being born in America, you're not American enough because you weren't born here. So it's always this place of no man's land. I would tell myself, you belong. And the reason you belong is because you belong to God. And you're always, always, always welcome in his presence. And he is always with you. Respectfully speaking, I always tell God he's a stalker, right? Respectfully speaking, you're stalking me, God.
And he says, yes.
Yourself had that peace and trust and know in my gut that my gut was real, that my experiences were real, and I didn't have to take crap from other people, that I could stand up and speak up for myself. That's what I would tell my younger self.
Love. I love. And yeah, I felt that in a place. I too have always felt like not quite, like that was I didn't quite fit in. And it's taken years for me to just be like, and that is me, right? To be accepting of my whole full self, like all of the nerdy, geeky, goodness that is me. So I'm for it.
Absolutely. You don't have to fit in. You were born to stand out, right? And that's the thing. My husband laughs at me because I geek out about certain things, and he just does not understand why I'm so excited. Like, he's like, you're this excited about Harry Potter. Like, you're this excited about, like, are you serious? Like, are you serious? And he giggles a lot because he's just like, the things that excite you. I love laundry. He's like, I don't understand anybody gets this excited about. This is like my happy place. But it is on the journey of discovering who you are, you get to learn that you truly are fearfully and wonderfully made.
Yeah, there's no one like you.
And you were never meant to fit in. How can you fit in when there's only one of you and one of the other person?
That's right. That is so true.
We are meant to work together to create what we want to see: love, compassion, equity, fairness, justice. God didn't call us to be like other people. He called us to be in community with other people.
Whew. Okay. All right, y'all. I want to thank you, Dr. Claire. You brought it today, ma'am. But I knew that you would. And it was just the conversation we needed to have. And I know that my audience is going to take so much away from this, that they can actually put into practice, like usable information that is, I want to say they can just sort of take pieces and put it in their pocket, and some they can sort of lay out right now and get to work on. So thank you for your time today. I'm grateful and thankful.
I'm grateful and thankful for the opportunity, and also to be in community with another woman of faith. One last thing for the other people of faith, particularly Christian diaspora, when we struggle with if we had enough faith, we wouldn't need the therapy. Jesus was the first therapist that walked this earth. We call him a counselor. Okay, y'all. So she did that.
She did that. All right. So today, you guys, so that concludes today's episode of Stimming and Stilettos with Dr. Toshia. I just know that you guys are walking away with some nuggets. Go look up Dr. Claire on LinkedIn and see the good work that she and her sister are doing with their organization. And you'll have all the links in the show notes as well. And as I end every episode, you guys, I want you to be well and keep yourselves safe. All right. Bye, everybody.